Welcome to our session on selecting the right key performance indices or KPI for your project-based business. Let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Kim Coster and I specialize in project and financial management. Over the years, I've seen many successful initiatives to utilize KPIs where we were truly executing to the corporate goals and objectives, and some that weren't so successful. I look forward to sharing some insights with you today. Growing and being profitable, they're the goals of most businesses, but they may not be the only goals an organization has. Things like cash or working capital may also be important. What is difficult is formulating an overall business strategy and then deciding what's the best path to take. So where do you start? The answer lies in the financials and the project data, both past and current. So best-in-class engineering companies know that using financial and project information and then the resultant KPIs are the keys to unlocking business strategies. So let's level set on exactly what is a KPI. It's a measurable value that demonstrates how effectively an organization is achieving key business objectives. Organizations use KPIs at multiple levels to evaluate their success in reaching those targets. So we may have high-level KPIs that focus on the overall performance of an enterprise or a portfolio, and low-level KPIs that focus on project performance, process adherence, status, etc. In order to get a measurable value, you need data, because a KPI is data, and most likely it's a calculation, so your data needs to be correct. So before we can even begin to talk about KPIs, we need to discuss the state of your data. Cleaning up that old ERP data can be hard work, but that work can have a wonderful payback. Having accurate historical information is going to shine a light on things that worked and things that didn't work. And current information. If your current information is correct, it's going to tell you what's working today, and then you'll have forecasts that are going to help you predict the future. This combination of accurate data will truly help formulate your business strategies. I pulled a couple of quotes about data, so let me just cite them to you. IBM estimates that the yearly cost of poor quality data in the United States alone in 2016 was a massive $3.1 trillion. You also have 1 in 3 business leaders that don't trust their data. Now, what's the root cause of that? We have many manual processes and off-book calculations, so finance and accounting teams are reconciling and re-reconciling potentially incorrect data. We have lots of errors, and we just continue to beg forgiveness for those errors, but the finance teams continue to have to correct that. We have lots and lots of email, Excel spreadsheets, and PowerPoint, and we still have disparate systems. So disparate accounting systems, time collection, resource management, and then reporting tools, all of which cause the executives and management team to be making poor decisions based on old or incorrect data. So let's discuss some tips, now that we've cleaned our data up, how to keep it clean. The first is to treat that data just like any other asset. So we've heard how much it's costing companies to have bad data. So we know that having good data is going to save us money. We also need to have a structure of how we want to create and keep that data accurate. So what level do we need to cost? Do we need for past performance? What do we need to have our current status? So, really formulating an overall strategy for that asset is important also. The second tip is to use and create an integrated ecosystem. And when I say ecosystem, I mean people, processes, and tools. The third tip is to establish processes and procedures, keep them fresh and current, and make sure that they are still applicable to your business needs. The fourth tip is to train those members on processes, make sure that it's role-based so that they understand what their part in the overall process is, but you also want to make sure that they understand what the downstream effect is on other teams. You've made a huge investment in your ERP system, so make sure that you continue to provide training so that the tools that you've bought, that you're getting the best use of them. A lot of times these tools are complicated, so don't think that people are just going to be able to intuitively know how to operate them. Continue to give them that training. As a management team, make sure that you're instilling that discipline to enforce process adherence. Make sure that you create a culture that says that's the right thing to do, and you can incent and reward employees. There's lots of ways to do that. The other thing is that need to make sure that that historical and current data is accessible to all decision makers. Once they get used to using it and all the teams get used to using it, it just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that they're going to want to keep all of that data as clean as they possibly can because they know that it's driving good decision making. So just a couple of advantages of clean data. First, you have good decision making with quantitative information. It's going to give you a competitive advantage because you hear how many people don't have good data, and it's going to give you clear line of sight into what your business strategy should be. Here are the 5 steps we're going to talk now about unlocking business strategies. We're going to spend the most time on number 1, but all of them are equally as important. So, defining your business strategies through the KPIs. So let's start by talking about KPIs. So KPIs, again, they measure activity that reveal how a business or a team is performing against its goals. KPIs are the most critical or key metrics that measure the success of specific activities used to meet business goals. You're going to want to measure those also against a target that's defined by the business or a benchmark so that you're going to add the context to each activity that's being measured. Let's talk about what a KPI is not. If a measurement of activity or metric does not directly influence the achievement of the business goals, it's not a KPI. It is simply a metric. Not all measurements are created equal. Therefore, not all metrics are KPIs. Also, a KPI is only as valuable as the action it inspires. Too often, organizations, they just follow the pack. They use industry-recognized KPIs, and then they wonder why that KPI doesn't reflect their own business, and it fails to make an impact of any kind. So make sure that the KPIs are relevant to your business. Another important aspect of KPIs is that they're a form of communication, and they need to have the same rules and best practice as any other form of communication. So make sure they're succinct, clear, and relevant, and then people will be much likely more to absorb and act upon those KPIs. One way to evaluate the relevance of your KPI is to use the SMART criteria. And this can be, this acronym can also be changed, but this is the acronym and spell out of that acronym that I choose to use for today. You can look on Wikipedia, and there's several other ones. So, is it specific? Is your metric specific? Does it target a specific area for improvement? Can you measure it? Is there an indicator for which you can see whether or not you're meeting your goals? Is it attainable? Who will do the work? Who is responsible for it? Is it realistic? Can we get the resources that we need in order to get the results that we're looking for? And can we do it in the time frame that we want to do it? So SMART is a great way to kind of walk through a succinct set of steps to make sure that your KPIs are what you need for your business and make sure that they're really working for your business strategy. I also want to talk about another couple of tips for picking the right KPIs. You need to make sure that you have a very clear purpose, what matters most. You want to put it in a common business language. And an example I like to use is an EV metric, TCPI, to complete performance indices. People don't necessarily know what that means, but if you say something like, how much work do I have left to go and how much money do I have to achieve that work, that's something that people can understand. Another tip is make sure you look at a holistic approach. You may say to yourself, hey, I want to meet schedule on every single project, but sometimes in order to meet schedule, you have to add resources or you have to have overtime. So the unintended consequence of that metric could be all of a sudden you have driven your costs through the roof. So make sure that you're looking at the whole picture. You also want to have a mechanism to display those KPIs to all your stakeholders. And those should really be through real-time dashboards, and then define the tolerances so people can visually look at that metric very quickly and see whether it's bad. Bad might be red. Yellow may be trending bad. Green is good, and blue is we're awesome. We're killing our metrics. So these are just some additional tips for picking the right KPIs that you might want to instill. Now, this chart just simply shows strategic and common project and portfolio metrics that you may want to consider deploying. So project metrics are designed to achieve actionable information about the project so you can course correct as you go. Portfolio metrics are going to give you valuable information about product lines, geographies, so that you can make great decisions on what direction you think the company should be going. So the next chart really is talking about a quick exercise to pick a KPI. And these are the questions that you will want to consider. So in our example, what's our desired outcome? In our example, it's to increase revenue by 15% this year. Does the outcome matter to the organization? Yes, it does, because having this target is going to allow the business to finally, after all these years, become profitable. The third question, what's the methodology that we're going to use to measure progress? It's going to be measured week over week based on the increase of revenue. The next, how and who can influence the outcome? So the sales leaders are going to influence the outcome, and they're going to do this by hiring additional sales staff, and we're going to try to upsell to our existing customers. Also, we're going to need to win 50% of our current bids to meet our goal. Who's responsible for this business outcome? In our example, the COO is going to be responsible for the metric. How will we know if we achieved our outcome? Well, simply we're going to know that because we will have increased our revenue by 15%. And how often are we going to review progress towards this outcome? We said we were going to look at it weekly, but I think that we should review this with our executive team on a monthly basis. So if you use this simple exercise for every KPI, you're going to know if you're meeting your current business objectives, and you will have picked a KPI that's going to matter to your business. Now, the second tip in unlocking business strategies is to use internal and external benchmarks. Benchmarking is simply looking at the performance of others, looking at their expenditures, policies, strategies, and then comparing them to your organization. It's a great methodology to look internally and externally to see what others are doing to be successful. Internal benchmarking could be across divisions, departments, or portfolios, but this isn't as common a practice as you might think. Unfortunately, many companies are still very siloed. They've got varying processes and procedures. There's disparate systems, and it makes the exchange of information very costly and difficult. So what can you do? You can use external benchmarking. It can be very powerful. There's no prep or manipulation of the data internally, so it's going to save you time and money. Now, a great metric that report that I like to use is the PMI, Pulse on the Profession. There's several years of reports out there, so you can look at trends, and it's going to give you critical information like things like, are people having a project management office these days? Is that project management office, is it centralized or decentralized? And people who align strategy with their PMO, how much more successful are they in meeting their project objectives? So why is benchmarking externally so important? It's going to give you a perspective of the overall industry. It's going to provide an understanding of what others are doing to be successful, and it's going to give you ideas. It's going to get your creative juices going so that you can think of new ideas to improve your business. It's going to make you more competitive, and it's going to help you win more business and grow your organization. The third key process for unlocking business strategies is to look for trends in your data. So data analysis is the process of inspecting, cleansing, transforming, and modeling data with the goal of discovering useful information, suggesting conclusions, and then supporting your decision making. It requires that you look for patterns and relationships within the data. For instance, if you're looking at labor forecasts or utilization, there's likely going to be more vacation taken in June, July, and December. So people are taking a lot of PTO. So you want to make sure that you understand your data, and that as you're looking for those patterns, that you understand it and that you utilize that then in your decision making. You also want to look for special occurrences in the data. So like where I live, it never snows, but all of a sudden It did. We had a huge snowstorm, and it shut down many offices and really shut down the city for over a week. So many businesses then probably had no billable work that was being performed. Now, this may not happen for another 20 years, so you want to make sure as you're looking for those trends that you don't have an anomaly like that you're using to make business decisions. So make sure things like that don't skew the data or skew the information that you're using to make business decisions. The fourth item to look at unlocking business strategy is to take the time to dig deeper into your data. So if you look at this chart right here, you're able to look at the billable charges, and you have a nice pie chart. Now, if you have a tool that allows you to drill down into that data, you can drill down over here and get additional information. Now, one thing as I look at these two reports, one thing that's very interesting is I've got Frank T. Controller, and in this project, he's got 56 hours for $3,500, and over here, he's got 16 hours for $2,600. So, which project is Frank actually making the most money on? Well, it's this one over here. It's the space station. So, that gives you some key indications of, anomalies or different things within your data so that you can really understand what's going on. One example I like to use is you may have a portfolio that's very profitable, but unless you have the ability to go down and look at each one of the projects performance that makes up that portfolio, that information at the project level may be skewed, and you may be leaving money on the table. You may have one project that's wildly successful and three that aren't. And, if you really go in and look then now at those three, you can have a portfolio that is wildly successful, because those three you can go in and course correct and try to make sure that you're not leaving any revenue or profit on the table. So take the time to probe deeper. It'll be a very valuable activity for you. You also want to use that fully integrated system that I mentioned before, and that's going to ensure that the data is linked together properly, and it's going to increase the probability that your data is correct. So your people are going to be trained. You're going to have processes that are current and feed your current business environment, and you're going to have a tool that is project-centric and really will handle all of the information that you need to manage your people, your financials, and your projects. And if you have all of these three, people, processes, and tools, in perfect alignment, you're going to have business success beyond your wildest dreams. So hopefully you've gotten some good tips today for how to unlock business strategies. This is just a quick recap of the 5 steps, and I wish you project execution success and wildly successful projects. And thank you a lot for your time today.